Yeah. Good morning, one and all. Thank you for joining us here today. This morning, the Managing Director of Akora Resources, Mr. Paul Bibby, is going to talk to us about the recent activities on site at Bekisopa Iron Ore Project in Madagascar and give some discussion around the recent scoping study. We'll also have time for some questions at the end, so we look forward to hearing from you. I'll hand it over to Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning, everybody, and appreciate you joining us today for our update on progress in the past 3 or 4 months at site, and also to talk about the scoping study, which we received last Thursday and announced to the market on Monday that we've got it. The first slide is just a reminder of our resource that we confirmed back in April of this year. The Maiden resource of just under 200 million tonnes is in the inferred category. So it's the lowest of the 3 categories. And it's because of that that we can't give you numbers and financial outcomes from the scoping study at this stage. We need to get a quantum of the resource at Bekisopa into the indicated or measured category. And that's why, in conjunction with the scoping study, we've been doing the infill drilling program on the DSO in the southern zone at Bekisopa. And as these assays are completed, they will immediately get put into an updated mineral resource estimate. That will be in the inferred and possibly even some in the measured category because of the closer drill spacing. And then we can talk about some numbers from the scoping study. But one of the important points to remember is the scoping study has given us a huge volume of information. And as a result of that, the Akora board is now looking forward to progressing Bekisopa to the pre-feasibility stage. So the infill drilling program has been completed. As you can see from the image on the top left-hand corner, on the eastern and western sides of the Bekisopa deposit, we've done 85 shallow holes within the weathered zone to define the DSO. 3 more holes than planned and 300 metres more than planned because the intercepts were, in general, longer than we anticipated. So all encouraging. And as I said, a 50 by 50 drill grid, which means we should get an indicated or potentially measured mineral resource estimate in the sort of March, April of next year. The right-hand side images is myself looking at some drill core at site. In the drill core in the weathered zone, I'm holding a piece of lump ore there. So you see the lump ore, but also the fines. The ore is generally a reddy brown colour. But looking at that photo in the bottom there, the drill fluids in this case were jet black. So for a moment there, I thought we'd struck oil, but that was actually a section of drill core that has got very high grade magnetite mineralisation. You can see that drill core there at about 4 to 5 metres below surface. The high black colour there indicating very high grade magnetite, higher than the sort of typical numbers we're seeing of around 64.5% in that DSO. So that was all very good. While I was at site, we had a visit from the Mining Ministry. We had 3 people from the Antananarivo office of the Minister and 3 from the regional area of Fianarantsoa. They're the 6 people on the right-hand side of that picture. The fellow on the end, he's a very interesting guy. He's in charge of doing all the economic evaluations on projects. And we had a very lengthy chat. And the thing that he didn't appreciate before coming to site and watching the drilling and having a chat was that Bekisopa is a long life project, many, many decades, in meaning employment and revenue to the government. And he was quite impressed by that and has taken that back to the Minister. They also had a chance to speak with the leaders of the Bekisopa communities, the 2 men in the middle there, and they want us to be at site. They want us to progress the project because they know it means employment and improvement of their living standards in that area of Bekisopa, which is quite remote. I also had a chance to meet with the Mining Minister, the new Minister, and his secretary, discuss the project at length and what it means, and they are up to speed now on what Akora is doing and very supportive.
Well, just on that, when you're in full flight, how many staff do you think would be working on site at Bekisopa?
On site, well, on site, probably 150 to 200. and between the port and transport, potentially another 200. Yeah.
That'll be significant to not only the local communities, but the broader region. That's
absolutely
significant project.
Yep. They're the sort of things that those visitors to site were asking about, and it'll make a big difference to the whole region. Absolutely.
And the regulatory process with the ministry there, I know you've been ongoing engaged with them right from the very beginning. Is that still a good, comfortable relationship, and you don't see too many impediments to regulatory approvals?
All going very well. The new mining minister is from the industry. He understands what needs to happen, and he's working with the Prime Minister to get the approvals for the tenements moving again. They've gone through the evaluation by the legal department in Madagascar. So now it just has to be presented to the government and be passed, the new mining code. And from that will become the approval of the tenement. So Akora, but other companies working in Madagascar are feeling very positive and encouraged by what the mining ministry is doing at the moment. So it's all good news. Thank you. So looking at the scoping study. So as I've said, we've been doing two major projects this year in parallel. The infill drilling to get an indicated or measured resource, and the scoping study. And when those two come together, we're able then to announce numbers around capital operating costs, NPVs and the like. The scoping study has provided options for the Akora Bekisopa project, and the board is now confident to continue with this project to pre-feasibility phase. Some of the findings of the study, from a geological point of view, WAI have identified future drilling focus areas, both within the 6 kilometre strike at Bekisopa, but also at Satrikala, the new prospect. On the mining side, they've identified mine pit shells, but also mine plans, looking out for the DSO, the fines or the concentrate products. On the metallurgy and processing side, they've produced equipment descriptions, processing volumes and product qualities, and they're all very encouraging. And as we've been saying along over the last year or more since drilling commenced at Bekisopa, we're seeing high-grade products, both in DSO, fines, and also in direct reduced iron concentrate material. On the community social side, we've got a baseline of where things are at, but also areas for future work. Transport, logistics and infrastructure. WAI visited site, they've travelled the roads, they've gone to the port, they've looked at the distances and what that means and what the options are, and have come up with capital and operating cost options. At the port, they've developed two likely scenarios and their costings. On the power side, one of the things that I found very encouraging is that Madagascar is one of the highest sun intensity areas in the world, a rating of around 8. And as a result, solar for generating power for a project of our size is practical and economical, which was good to see. A full suite of financials from a financial model, a comprehensive financial model with capital and costs and operating costs estimates, and that has then gone through to develop net present values and IRRs, which are very strong for all of the scenarios. And the pleasing thing is that WAI, the engineers, have not identified any negatives, any showstoppers that would stop the project from progressing. So that was very encouraging to get that independent assessment. So the next two slides are on the port and the road, and this one's about the road. So on the left-hand corner, it's Bekisopa and Satrikala. You can see our tenements there where we've been doing the work, both drilling and exploration, and then the road that goes down there to the port of Toliara. Below that map is the elevation change. So from site, we're going from an elevation of about 1,000 metres downhill to the port at sea level over just 300 kilometres in distance. So it's good that we're going downhill with loaded trucks and uphill with empty trucks. Now the images on the right, you can see where they are located on that map. The fairly solid dirt track is the track heading north to our Satrikala prospect. So there's an existing road there, which we could very readily upgrade to an all-weather road, either solid compacted rock surface or a bitumen road, and that continues on part way to Bekisopa. Then you turn around and you head south to the highway. You've got this very wide, very good road going through the village of Satrakala to join up with the national highway, the RN7. There's about 40 kilometres of that road, and that's a good all-weather road. And then you get onto the national highway, and you can see where the first photo is. That's the turnoff. It's a very good road. And the photo on the bottom right-hand side, again, is some very good road further along that trip. In all, the assessment from Ward L. Armstrong was that 80% of the road is in this good quality, 10% is in sort of average quality, and 10% is poor. And if you're like me and live in Victoria, that poor is like most of the roads around my area, which just needs standard maintenance to fill in the potholes and improve the bitumen surface. So nothing major in terms of the road quality, but overall was a very encouraging trip by Ward Allen to evaluate the road.
Those roads look a lot better than most of the Melbourne Highway at the moment, Paul, so that looks good.
Exactly right. No, it was very encouraging. It was very pleasing. It was the first time I've driven that road, and I must say I was really quite pleased. We then got to the port of Toliara. So the image there on the top left-hand corner shows you the town of Toliara. The golf club coming out into the blue ocean is the port. So you've got the road going out there, which is the photograph below. That's the roadway, quite a large roadway going out to the main port loading area, which is the image in the top right-hand corner. So we actually drove out there, we walked around, we talked to people, we saw what was there, and was very pleasantly surprised. We then actually got in a sailing boat and went for a bit of a trip on the ocean. And you can see there the full extent in that middle photograph of the face of the port. That can certainly take handy size and supermax size bulk carriers. At the time we were there, the depth of the water was 8.9 metres, and it varies between 7 to 12 metres. So that's suitable for those size vessels. Now, what WAI have come up with is options to look at a stockpiling area at the start of that jetty, that road going out to the loading area, and then a conveyor and a loading facility on the existing jetty. One of the impediments to that is you have to then drive through the town of Toliara, some 5 or 6 kilometres, with large trucks routinely, and that does take some time. We're also looking at a second opportunity for development of the port, and that is to acquire land about where the 1 kilometre symbol is, acquire land there outside of the town, about 4 to 5 kilometres outside of the town, and then have a jetty either going diagonally across to the existing port, or more likely going straight out to sea and have a loading point from there. So both of those options have been evaluated and capital and operating costs assessed. But overall, quite encouraged by the roads and the port. So the scenarios that were looked at in the scoping study, there were 3. The first was DSO mining from the known mineralisation. So the known mineralisation from the mineral resource estimate done in April has about 6 to 7 years of high-grade DSO being mined and processed, and then some lower future years looking at beyond that, out to 10. The second scenario was DSO and then additional processing capacity to produce a crushed 2mm fines product, grading better than benchmark grade. And scenario 3, which is the scenario that we've been talking about for quite a while, is the DSO startup, generating cash, and then following that by mining and producing a premium grade concentrate at better than 67 or 68% iron at 70 micron grade. And again, all of these scenarios are feasible and economically viable. So quite encouraged by all of that. These statements were in the announcement we put out on Monday. WAI was very encouraged. They've done numerous projects around the world similar to Bekisopa. They believe that Akora's got, with Bekisopa project, high potential due to its grades, not just for the DSO, but for all of the products, the lumps, the fines, the fine project, but also the concentrate project. Low impurities, particularly for the concentrate and fines, and positive processing characteristics, as we've been talking about. The pre-feasibility study can be undertaken, and that's where the board is heading to now in next year, once the DSO infill drilling assay results are incorporated to an upgraded mineral resource estimate. They also encourage us to do work at Satrakala because they can see that that looks to be an additional source of DSO material, and being closer to the port will make the economics even more attractive. So Bekisopa, then Satricala, additional years of DSO high grade does make the financials very positive. So all in all, the scoping study provided positive, constructive findings and no showstoppers. Sorry, Peter?
Yeah, I was just going to ask on the DSO issue, if Satricala looks an analogue to Bekisopa, potentially you can roll on from one DSO operation into the other and then offer up a longer term offtake program for potential off-takers, which would then underpin funding, perhaps?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Peter. So at the moment, we've drilled, as you know, 30% of the 6 kilometre strike at Bekisopa. We've got 200 million tonnes. So there's potentially 500 or more million tonnes of resource at Bekisopa. If Satricala is similar, you've then got 500 plus 500, you've got 1 billion tonne across 2 sets of tenements in Madagascar, of which the first period of time can be mining of DSO, generating funds to fund the capital for the future concentrate project as the green steel DRI comes into play more and more, and there's greater demand for those products.
And for the DSO operation, is there the ability, one of the questions that we had, is there an ability to start with a smaller CapEx upfront and then scale up from there in a phased approach?
Yes. No, look, we've got the scoping study looks at different tonnages and the scale up over 3 years. Potentially you could build that up over 5, so that particularly on the infrastructure side, you don't have to expend as much money early on. And as you generate the funds from mining and getting the revenue from the DSO, improve the infrastructure and then go to more significant tonnes. So yeah, very much so. And the scoping study shows you the pathways to do that.
And Paul, with DSO, is there option for binding offtake agreements upfront to assist with the project funding, or is it all spot priced market?
We are in discussions with companies that want to do offtake agreements with us. The attractiveness of that is that for that offtake and management for a proportion of the production volume, they will provide funding to progress works at Bekisopa, pre-feasibility and potentially for initial capital. So we are exploring those options right now. So the last, or maybe second last slide is, while I was at site, we had a good week at site, we produced a lump and fines bulk sample. Now, one of the reasons for doing this is that the samples are needed for value in use testing, and that is a key first step for doing any offtake agreements. So we've produced these samples in readiness for the value in use testing. We sampled, it started at the top left-hand corner, we sampled across 6 locations along the 6 kilometre strike. This is drill hole number 13 from last year. The picture there at the top middle is where the drill pad is. You can see lump and fines iron ore, high-grade material, some very big rocks which need to be crushed, and then normal lump and fines. We had a team of local fellows working with us from the village. They quite enjoyed doing this job. They got into they couldn't understand my English, but they understood what we needed to do and produced the products from the screens. So there we've got 3 products. The one at the bottom left-hand side is the oversized, and that in a normal processing is what you'd expect to see. That goes through the crusher again and screening to produce lump and fines. And the bottom 2 photos is the lump and fines product that we've taken from drill hole number 13. You can see the lump there, lovely clean, high grade lump product between 6.3 and 32 millimeters, and the fines, which is less than 6.3. In all, we've produced about 240 kilometres of both lump and fines from those 6 locations in readiness for testing for value in use. And that is all. So hopefully that's been a good update to everybody, both on the infill drilling and the scoping study. So please, Peter and listeners, questions.
Thanks, Paul. And we have answered a couple along the way. A question here this morning is, with the optimism provided by the scoping study, when do you foresee a decision made to move to a pre-feasibility study, and how long do you think that would take?
Okay, so I've already started talking to Wardell Armstrong about what's involved for a pre-feasibility study and the cost and the timing, and got those answers back overnight. So we first have to do the assaying from the infill drilling. That'll be completed in January of next year, all going well, and then do the mineral resource estimate. That'll be finished in March, April of next year. And as that is unfolding, we'll be looking to start the pre-feasibility study. And that's a 6 to 12 months project, depending on the detail you need, particularly on the environmental, water and weather information and things like that. The engineering can be done relatively quickly. It's the more of the social, community, environmental things that you need more data on. But we'll be looking to start that April, May of next year.
And would that pre-feasibility study be based upon the first part of the project, such as the DSO, or would it incorporate a larger section?
No, the first phase of the pre-feasibility will focus on the DSO, and we'll use the data from the updated mineral resource estimated, which will define tonnes and grade of the DSO in that southern zone. Potentially 8 to 10 million tonnes in the indicated or measured category. And that can then be the basis of a mine plan going out 6, 8, 10 years, depending on the ramp up, which is one of the other questions you asked earlier. And the DSO is encouraging part of the project. And one of the things that differentiates Akora from other magnetite projects is that we have this opportunity to produce lump and fines DSO, get the premium for the lump, get the premium for the higher grades that we're seeing in the DSO at Bekisopa. Around 64.5% was what the drilling from last year was showing. And we've been looking forward to seeing what this year's drilling numbers look like. And that generates a healthy margin, which enables potentially money to go back to shareholders, but also more importantly, or equally as important, money to go into investing in capital to upgrade the process over time, to enable you to go to higher volumes and therefore bigger revenues and so on.
A great stepped phase plan for a small cap company to move to a large cap company by paying your own way as you go. It's an opportunity that not many others in this position would have, I would imagine.
No, look, I truly believe that's the case, and that's the uniqueness of Bekisopa. And as we've shown over the last 12 months, as we've done the drilling and we've done the mineral processing evaluations, we've got the DSO, which is high grade. We can crush the material that's a lower grade, 45 to 55% iron, and upgrade that quite readily to better than benchmark grade of 62% fines at relatively low capital costs. So the story really hasn't changed. The scoping study's given the board some more data and some numbers that's given us more confidence to go to the pre-feasibility. But we've got that stage program, and which is looking very encouraging.
Paul, I think we've covered the bulk of the questions through the presentation and our discussion. Congratulations so far. It's looking good. I know that shareholders will be looking forward to further results as you move towards the PFS, and we look forward to hearing from you very shortly.
No, thank you, Peter. And look, the last 2 days have been quite busy getting shareholder phone calls and emails, which hopefully I've answered constructively for everybody. It's a pity that we have to hold off on the numbers in the scoping study. I know investors will be really encouraged next year as we can start to talk through some of these numbers as we get the indicated and measured resource for the DSO, and then build on that and to go forward with the project. So thank you very much, everybody.
We'll make this video available to everybody and we'll send it out as well. So any other further questions, please don't hesitate to send them through. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Paul.
Okay, all the best. Thank you.